Leila made a very interesting video about finding a header based on lookup criteria in a matrix. And before I forget, here's a link to her Excel courses, some really great Excel courses, and the link to the video that she made last night. Now, let's go to the challenge here. What is the division for the app? So these are apps, and each one is listed one time somewhere in this matrix. So here we have date, here we have the division in the column headers, and this is the matrix of values where you put them in according to how you classify that app. So these are the divisions here. And now let's look at a specific example. If we're looking for the app blend, it'll be somewhere in columns B, C, or D. In this case, it's in column B. And so the answer that we want to put here is just finding this word over here somewhere. When we find it, look directly above. In this column header, productivity is what should go over here in this cell in the division. So that's what should go here at the top. Now, here's what threw me off. I didn't realize that first when I watched the video. There could be multiple apps per row. So that kind of made it a little bit tricky for me. But now let's move on to this. Whenever we're creating solutions, we have to think about all these different factors, right? Can we only use one formula? Should it be easy to understand? Will more data be added? Someone could be showing you only 20 rows of data. And if we don't ask them, we could just assume it's a small data set. Maybe it's going to scale up to 500,000 rows. Another factor is how much time do we have to create a solution. We can't always create the perfect solution, or there's some kind of time crunch. We have to create a solution that we know is accurate and it works. Also, if it's a long-term thing, can we restructure the data and make the data analysis part easier? And then finally, what if someone that we're helping is insisting on no array formula and no sum product, because it does take a lot of time investment to understand how those work. So let's now look at the sum product, which Leila did, and a couple of the arrays that I did. The good part is it's only one formula. So here's Leila's sum product. I won't get into the whole thing. You can watch her video, as I said, back here. Here's the video for that explains the whole thing. But sum product can do it. It's great because it does not require Control-Shift-Enter. If you go in here and look at it, and instead of pressing Escape, if you didn't change anything, you press Enter, no problem. Here's my array. This is basically the array version of Leila's sum product. But the problem is those special brackets, if you go in here to look at it and you just press the Enter key, you see that you get an error. You have to press Control-Shift-Enter if you change something. If you just go to look at it, you could press the Escape key. And then here I have a different array formula, but it's even more complex. I was trying to solve this with find, but it became more complicated. So let's now jump into looking at helper formulas. We could actually solve this with helper formulas. You'll see there's a number of steps here. You probably think, oh, it's too complicated. But some people prefer this, believe it or not, because they just cannot wrap their head around the arrays. But to me, this was more about the challenge. Can I solve this without a sum product or without an array formula? So let's look at step one. Step one, we're simply going to concatenate everything with commas. Commas around, even if they're blanks, are around everything in here. So we take this formula and we drag it all the way down. Really simple helper, and it's also very, very light if we had, 100,000 or 500,000 rows. Better than an array or some product, of course. Now, some people might say, hey, why not do the text join function? So this function that you see here, the text join, if you have the new version of Excel 2016, it would definitely work. But it's more complicated and it's heavier. Why use this? We can do it in a really simple way, just concatenating everything. So step two is this. We're just going to use these wildcards, a wildcard and a comma, and our app value, which is blend, and another comma and a wildcard, and look in this comma, find the position of it. So we're looking for a blend, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I go in here, highlight the row part, press the F9 key, you see that it's a 4, counting down 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the index just says, in that same area, give me the fourth one, which of course is this one. So that is our step two. You'll see why this is needed in a second here. Step three is simply to say, take out what is to the left of our app, of our word, right, of our app. So here we're saying just find the beginning of the word, which is blend, and take what's to the left. So we do this all the way down. In this case, it's a little bit different because where we find the word accord, there's two words. Um, there it is. So we find the word accord, but there's two words in here. So that's why we see this other thing in there, the other app. But that's the way we want it. Next step is step 4. And over here you see this is pretty simple. All we're doing is counting the number of commas. That's what this formula does. Just counts the number of commas in the cell to the left. So it's counting 1, here it's 3, 3 again. And finally, we'll see why I did that. See, it makes more sense in many ways to separate these. I know we could debate this forever, but separate these steps into different columns. If you put this all together in one cell, it's just so long, no one can audit it, and it's really complicated. Just make the column header nice and descriptive, and people can follow this along, right? That's what I always recommend. Our final step now is very simple. Just an index formula to say, hey, index across the top, I want the first one. And so let's go back to blend. We find this word blend right there. That should be the answer, productivity. So it was neat to be able to solve this. I had to really think about this to not make this too complicated, but in many ways, this is my favorite way. I love array formulas in Sumproduct, but these simple little steps is easy to explain, and all these steps are very, very light. All right, there's one other way to do this, and this would be to normalize it. Now, if you can convince someone, if this is a long-term thing, to not enter the data like this, it's kind of nice that it's a matrix. You can see, hey, this is the date, this is the division, the column headers, but this is not a good way to analyze data. It makes the solutions complicated, either many steps for helpers, or we get into these more complicated formulas that require a lot of knowledge and explanation. So how can we make this easier so that the solutions are very quick and simple? Well, we have to normalize this. So this is the Alt-DP trick, and you could Google that, or maybe I'll add a link, but it's this simple little thing here where we go in here. It's a couple of steps. We're going to reorganize this, and then going forward, people can add more data. It would be super simple. So next, go like this, say 0. I will highlight my range of data starting in the bottom right-hand corner up to the top left, which is right to there. I'm going to say next, and then in the existing worksheet, I'm going to put this right there, finish. So we have this pivot table. Well, how is that helpful? Well, we're going to take away the row, take away the column, and when I double left click this, it's going to extract the data in the format, extract the data from the pivot cache in the format that we want. So let's put it here on another sheet. So I'm going to simply call this date. This is our division, and this is our app. So now I'm going to copy this and paste it back in here just so that we can see it. Now we have this data. If you need to add more data, you simply go to the bottom. You add something new at the bottom, the table automatically expands. It's that simple. And then watch this. You're not going to believe this. It is so simple now to solve this. You can teach this to anyone. Match the word blend in here. Let's highlight this column, and we get to the bottom here. All the way to the bottom, it detects that it's table 35 and field app. We go like this, comma 0 for exact match, press enter, give this a 10. So I'm going to drag this down first. It's just giving the position of where it finds the app in this field app, and then I just simply go like this, index our division, which is our answer, put a comma, press enter a couple of times, and there's our answer. So that is, if you can convince someone to rearrange the data, use this Alt-DP pivot trick, rearrange it, and going forward, they use this format, add new rows at the bottom. All you need is a simple index match to solve it. So however you solve this, it's up to you. Different ways to do it. It all depends on the circumstances and what works for you and the person that you're helping.